Hi, and welcome to DC Public Safety. I'm Len Sipes. The show today focuses on the high-risk drug offender, and as you know, newspaper articles for the last 40 years have made this person a point of major concern. The question is whether or not the high-risk drug offender can be successfully supervised and treated. Can they become productive, crime-free citizens? To answer that question, we have two individuals on our first segment, one currently under supervision by my agency, the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency, and one who has successfully completed supervision. They are Ronald Wade and Marissa Johnson. In the second segment, we will interview two supervisory community supervision officers who supervise and assist high-risk drug offenders on a daily basis. And with that, we welcome Ronald Wade and Marissa Johnson, and welcome to DC Public Safety.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Marissa. Ronald, tell me a little bit about your backgrounds, your crime backgrounds and your drug backgrounds, because what we're talking about in this program is the person heavily involved in crime, heavily involved in drugs, and whether or not society can meaningfully do anything with these individuals besides incarcerating them. Marissa, go ahead, please.
My name is Marissa. Started using drugs at the age of 9. I stayed on the streets for 19 years, smoking crack. Choice of drugs was crack cocaine.
Oh, and at the age of 9, what did you start using?
Marijuana, PCP. I left from PCP to acid, after acid, crack cocaine.
Okay. And why do you think you started as early as you did?
I had abandonment issues.
Had what now?
Abandonment issues.
And what you're describing in terms of what we call the high-risk drug offender, that's not unusual.
No, it's not.
Early age of onset, early use of drugs, having family issues, that's common. It's common in the research, and it's common to all the offenders that I've talked to throughout my criminal justice career. So what about the crime part of it?
The crime part of it started at the age of 19.
Okay.
I got arrested the very first time for just giving a guy a ride. But he had PCP on him.
Okay.
But I got arrested also.
Right.
And after that, I copped a habit, crack
Okay.
cocaine. It just was ongoing.
A lot of theft?
No theft, a lot of possessions.
Okay.
A lot of distribution.
Drug dealer?
Distribution.
Okay. You were caught up in that whole drug dealing world.
Distribution.
Okay. Violence is an inherent part of the whole drug dealing world, is it not?
Exactly.
Were you involved in the violence?
I seen a guy's head blow off a couple of times.
Okay.
In and out, like I said, in and out, back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, until it got to the point where my last time, I didn't think I was going to come home.
When I talk to the community supervision officers within my agency who deal with the high-risk drug offender, they tell me in many cases it's like dealing with a person who has been a veteran at war. They've seen so many people hurt, so many people dying, so many people lives destroyed that they've become, damaged in that process as people. Am I right or wrong?
It's so easy to get into, and it's still taking time for me to undo what I have done. Acceptance plays a big part of my life today. Accepting the things I cannot change.
Okay.
C. Sosa has been wonderful to me.
Okay.
Absolutely, to the utmost. Without C. Sosa, I may be dead.
What programs are we talking about that you got involved in?
C. Sosa came to the DC jail to give me an opportunity to come back to the streets.
Okay.
At that time, I was still toxic.
Okay.
And I had no idea what I was signing. I had no sense of direction. All I know, I wanted to come to the streets.
Right.
They gave me a chance and an opportunity to start my life over again.
All right.
Okay. I signed my name on a dotted line, not knowing what I was getting myself into.
Yep.
But when I met my probation officer, it was a book of a different color.
Yeah, I hear you. We want to get back to that and talk a little bit about that. But Ronald, your story, and when did you start drugs?
Probably age of 16.
At the age of 16? And what drugs were they?
Started out with alcohol.
Okay.
Graduated to marijuana.
Okay.
And then ran the table.
Right.
Every drug that was that you could conceive of, the hallucinogenics, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, but my drug of choice was labeled as heroin.
Okay. And your criminal background?
My criminal background is mostly dealing with property crimes and crimes against myself, distribution, no violence involved in it. Although I've been witness to countless occasions of violence taking place in the street and even in the institutions.
Yeah, and that's, again, a big part of when I talk to the community supervision officers, and this is the same question I posed to Marissa, when I speak to the community supervision officers who deal with a high-risk drug offender, they describe you guys as in many ways as almost as battle-scarred veterans. And that has an impact on your ability to escape this. So there's a certain point where the violence becomes almost accepted. There's a certain point where the violence and the disruption becomes almost a day-to-day thing.
When you're involved in the lifestyle of the street and from an institutional standpoint, you tend to become desensitized. I mean, you don't have the sensitivity that a normal human being has in relationship to how you feel as when a person is experiencing traumatic experiences in your life. In the institution, if you see an individual who is stabbed multiple numbers of times, your best outlook is to ignore that situation because you have to think past that situation.
Right.
If you decide to assist that individual, then the thing is you have to think, is he going to be the last, am I going to be the last person that he speaks to before he expires, so that whoever did what they did to him will come looking for me.
Okay.
So this is the street mentality that goes on. And I mean, it's dealing with the value system.
Well, and I agree with the value system, but let's get around to the programs a little bit. Marissa said that she was involved in programs through the Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency. Were you involved in any programs?
Yes, through C. Sosa. Thank God for C. Sosa and Mr. Brown at the South Capitol Street office, because he made a determination with me that I had one or two choices. Either I could go into treatment or I could suffer the consequences of a warrant being issued.
Right.
Well, I didn't want to go to jail.
Right.
So I opted to take treatment. But in the process of taking the treatment, I was exposed to, you know, the different components that go along with the rehabilitation process. But what I had to do was make myself accessible and open to the information, because all the necessary components for a person to become crime-free and drug-free, CSOSA provides.
Okay.
I came through what was then known as AOC,
Right.
Assessment and Orientation Center. And the therapeutic concepts from a psychological standpoint, from a health standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, all of these things that I was exposed to and the information that was provided to me that would enable me to turn my life around. But I had to be willing to accept the information.
Well, and that's the problem. The problem is that in so many cases when I talk to offenders who have successfully come away from a life of crime, who are now working, who are now drug-free, who are now out, you know, they're tax-paying citizens. They're no longer a burden to society.
Exactly.
It is reaching that point where I've heard 100 times, 1,000 times from heroin addicts especially, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And when they reach that point, then they climb back through programs. But is there a way of reaching out to offenders who haven't reached that point? Obviously, you guys are not in your 20s, you're not in your teens, you've had some experience too. It was a way of reaching out to the younger offenders to see if we can pull them out of the same cycle and get them involved in treatment and get them away from a life of violence and away from a life of crime. Is there a way of doing that? That's a tough question, I understand.
I have a daughter that's out there now.
She's out on the street?
She's out there.
She's part of the lifestyle?
She's part of the lifestyle.
Okay.
Prayer.
Yeah, prayer is right.
Pray.
I will say a prayer.
Prayer first.
I will say a prayer.
Prayer first. They say you can take a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink.
Right.
I have all the information. I use my information every day. I wear a two belt when I walk out my front door.
You wear a what belt?
A two belt.
Okay.
That I collected from Second Genesis as well as from C. Sosa.
Right.
It's fully loaded.
Right.
I strap up every day.
Right.
Looking for anything that may come my way, because
Right.
addiction is cunning and baffling.
Okay.
Okay. Acceptance. She's not ready.
Okay. And I hear that from so many offenders, and that's part of the tragedy in terms of dealing with high-risk drug offenders, of people who are out there doing a lot of drugs, doing a lot of crime, reaching out and pulling them back out of that pit, because all three of us know that it's a terrible, terrible pit to be in. It's one of the hardest things in the world to do until you're ready to make that transformation.
I'm on the tough love right now.
All right.
For my daughter.
Okay. Paul, questions about reaching today's younger offenders?
The desire has to come from within. I mean, once the desire comes from within, then everything is already in place to assist an individual. But you can make the information available, but until a person is willing to access that information and make use of it, it's just out there.
Yeah.
Exactly.